Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Pioneers Conclave. My name is Dhruv Joshi, and today, as the co host for this episode, we have Sandili Maurya. Coming to the guests of this episode, before I would give a formal introduction of the guest, I would like to say that the world we live in today is very superficial, and people look up to a lot of celebs and call them influencers. And they admire their lifestyle and all of it, try to copy that. But today, with us, we have the real influencer. We have the epitome of positivity. This man has not only influenced humans but also animals. So, not taking more time, welcome Mr. Shantanu. We are really glad to have you on the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Dhruv. I've been looking forward to this. And hi, Sandali. And thank you for that very generous introduction. Uh, I will try to live up to it every day, but I look forward to this conversation. And I've been looking forward to doing a podcast. This is my very first, and I'm glad that I'm doing it with youngsters such as yourselves.
So, from engineering to founding Motopause, from working on the pet hospital project for Tata Trust to founding On Your Sparks, and now you work so closely with Mr. Tata. So, if you had to sum up this entire journey in a word, phrase, or a sentence, what would it be?
Unexpected. It would definitely be the word unexpected. At no point in every step of this journey that you have described right now did I know that the next step was going to happen. I didn't know it when I was doing motopause. I didn't know it when I went to Cornell. I didn't know it when I actually came back to Bombay to work for Mr. Tata. So the unique part about this story for me personally is that at no point did I know it's going to unfold like this, which is very strange because I've always been someone who has mapped out what's going to happen next, right up to like 12th standard in engineering. And then life just went in a completely different direction. And I'm happy about it. So yeah, I would call it pretty unexpected.
So, whenever unexpected plans are usually the best ones, and they turn out to be like really good with time, I suppose. So, that's
Yeah,
happened
they
to you,
do.
I guess.
Yeah, if you start looking at chapters of your life as stories, if you start thinking in a way that what is happening right now is something I'm going to narrate as a story 2 years from now, your perspective on life changes a little bit, and you start doing things you normally wouldn't have, because that anxiety, a good anxiety, sets in where you think to yourself, what exactly is my story unfolding as? And then you start to make unexpected decisions and let them unfold, which you normally wouldn't do.
Did you always feel like this, like since the very beginning, or even as a child, did you always feel like, okay, I have different ideas? Were you always this creative and just so thoughtful?
Not at all, not at all. If I'm being very honest, I was the cut and dry, cookie cut Indian student who had mapped out his entire route from 10th standard this much percentage, 12th standard this much percentage, then getting into a good engineering college, and just then a master's and the whole shebang.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't this person always. I think that changed somewhere towards when I was in engineering. Um, I started playing the guitar again. Um, when I was a kid, my parents put me into a guitar class, which I hated. I always bunked that guitar class, and I went to a cyber cafe and spent money and played games a lot. And I wasted all those classes. I wasted them, and several years later, when I popped up in engineering, I just picked it up one day
Mm-hmm.
and I started fiddling around with it, and it turned into a whole thing. But by then I realized that I always have this innate need of converting whatever I'm doing into something meaningful, for me to be able to acknowledge and enjoy it. So I started composing songs for social causes, and they were very bad. I would never let them surface anywhere on YouTube or in anyone. Nobody needs to listen to the song, but
Yeah,
they were
you
about
know,
child.
third page of Google search, we always find those gems. We found them, don't worry.
I know what I have to
Yeah.
do after this podcast, but they were about child labor. They were about women harassment. Nirbhaya incident had happened back then. So, but with each song, I was sort of improving. I had put together this small team with my best friend back then who used to shoot and edit, and I used to make the songs. And by the fourth or fifth video, we actually got good, and we made this video called Pause for Cause, which, by the way, you should watch. It is a great video. It's about this. It's a story of this stray puppy called Johnny who was out on the streets, and it's very real footage.
I
And
have seen the video and it's adorable.
yeah, and it's a very heartfelt video. And from that video, I realized that don't want to keep doing conventional things, because I remember when I shot that video, my semester exams for engineering third year, I think, were a month away, and my parents and my friends were telling me not the right time, not the right time. And I was just like sneaking out under different pretexts and shooting the video anyway. And that sort of triggered a little spark about going off road constantly. All of these videos used to get a lot of coverage in the media and stuff, which is a byproduct and a validity, because we were young back then, and young people doing things is always novel to media houses. The songs weren't great. But by Pause for a Cause, we launched an adoption campaign. Then we formed a group of students who worked towards welfare of strays. And we weren't experts. We didn't know a lot about how to handle rescue cases. We didn't know about how to go about adoption and how to choose a family. But that was the first step. That video, after that guitar process, that video was the first step to me officially entering into animal welfare. And I say officially because I mean in a roll up your sleeves and act kind of way. So we actually started getting puppies adopted. We actually started responding to emergency cases wherever we could. So that was the start of the whole animal welfare scene. But to come back to your question, which now seems very far away from what I'm saying, is yeah, I wasn't always going off road and being creative as much as people like to believe that just needs to be a trait you have all along. It just comes to you when it comes to you. And it definitely is more quicker in coming to you if you are receptive to it, if you're open about it. So if you're looking for it, especially.
Absolutely. So you said you were into making songs and albums. So if you go in your past, the logo, the Motopause logo has the word touch heart in it. So is it
Correct.
this album which sponsored Motopause later? I mean, which formed Motopause later?
So Touch Heart was our group name. Because we were doing it for social cause, we went with Touch Heart, also very generic name. But later on, when we did form Motopause, we did go out and form the organization Touch Heart, under which or the music videos and the link to Motopause, the only link will be that Pause for a Cause video. Because after that Pause for a Cause video, we stopped making videos for any social causes. We just went on to the animal welfare phase, because that video touched us, that story touched us also. So we wanted to take it to the next step. So that's the only link between those videos and Motopause.
Do you miss the process of composing music?
I do. I miss it a lot. I used to have a lot of faith in myself and my music. And in the subsequent years, I did compose a couple of pieces on the piano and on the guitar, and they are just songs lying in some old diary. And I still remember those songs and how to play them, but I never really did anything with them. And
When are we
I know
seeing them again now?
I don't know. Honestly, I've made my plate so full that I don't know how to pick and choose what I want to do or go back to old things. Because the thing is, when I start to do something, for example, if you said that go and do this album, and if I start doing that album, I'll be so into it that other things will definitely get take second seat. So my obsession with the project is toxic sometimes, to the point where I don't do anything else or look at anything else. I just want to do that. So I need to have that time and mental space to say that, yes, I want to dedicate the next 3-6 months to making this album, that kind of stuff.
Right. So usually, I mean, jumping to another topic, I'm sorry for the very offset tone of changing the topic, but so usually in individual's life, we have certain experiences, just a bad experience or a good experience, which is like a life altering change. Like, some incident happens and you're so touched by it that you end up changing your entire life because of that incident. So what was that incident for you which changed your entire life completely, or the way you look at life completely?
I would quote two incidents if you let me. The first incident, which I have quoted a lot of times in my webinars also, but I think it's relevant, very relevant to this answer, is when I was in my first job as design engineer for a Tata automotive company. And in a very short time, I left that job because I believed that that monotonous frame was not for me and I wanted to go for higher studies. And on my last day, when I put in my papers and my notice period was coming up, my boss came up to me with an individual and introduced him as my replacement. And this was 2 days after I put in my papers. And that incident was just like, it just took 2 days to replace me as an individual and erase me completely from existence, where I have spent like every day 10 to 5 in this office. So what did I actually leave behind, or what will I even be remembered by? And that thought got so stuck in my mind that it's still stuck to this day, where I often take the time to ask myself, if I disappeared tomorrow, what will I be remembered by? What did I leave behind? What impact did I leave behind? And I don't mean popularity, I don't mean fame, but just in terms of what legacy did I create? What was I responsible for? Or whose life did I change when all the time I was here? And if the answer is replaceable 10 to 5 engineer in 2 days, then that's something very scary for me, because there are millions of those. And there are people who are comfortable with that, and that's fine if you're okay with it. But I wasn't. And I know that as 2020 unfolds, a lot of people aren't. Everyone's more woke now in terms of what they want from life and what gives them happiness. And I would recommend this question to everyone who's watching, just to ask yourself, if I disappear tomorrow, apart from my friends and family missing me, what will I be known for? Or what will I have left behind? And that changed my life completely. That was several years ago. That was one incident. The other one, more circumstantial, was about motopause. I don't know if you want me to answer this now, but when I used to come back from office every night during night shifts in the same job, I used to see these dead dogs in the middle of the road that had been run over. And I also saw them on highways when I traveled Pune, Bombay, and I saw them in several other incidents. And it used to eat me, because I was always thinking about not of just the fact that the dog had died, but what would he be thinking in his last moments? And did he even anticipate such a tragedy happening to him, when all he was doing was just trying to exist in our urban setting, which we are aggressively, constantly building? So what was he thinking, and what did his life amount to, rather than just a carcass on the road, which, by the way, gets run over and over again even after the carcass is dead, which just goes to show how little value his life has in the end. That troubled me a lot, which led to what I did in the future, of course, and which had a complete domino effect on my life. So motopause and the thinking about what am I doing in my life, what am I leaving behind if I had to disappear tomorrow, those two incidents, I think, sort of govern everything that has happened in my life till date.
Right. So, speaking of the ventures that you've, founded, and motopause, and all these amazing experiences that you've had, and now the level that you're at right now, do you ever fear losing any of this, or because we tend to, as humans, we have a tendency, if we like something, if we love something, we tend to cling to it. And do you ever feel like you're clinging on to it, or do you fear losing any of it?
That's a great question, and that's making me search inside my soul a lot. But fortunately for you and this podcast, I have been thinking about this always. And yes, you are right. I do fear losing all this, because things happened in my life very quickly. And that is something that people point out to me constantly, that a lot came to me at a very early age or very early on in my career. If you get things early on, which you never would have imagined you would get, then you absolutely fear losing them when you have them. But while this feeling was very strong early on, I have learned to deal with it because I believe that I have been put here because the universe wanted me here for a reason. So there is a purpose to why I was planted here. That purpose might be regarding me. That purpose might be regarding the people I'm around now, or the purpose might be related to what I'm about to do or what I'm doing. So if that exists, then the purpose of what happens after this will also exist. It's just a natural order of things that if the story has been good so far, then it means that I have something to contribute and the universe has some plans for me, and those two together, you can't really erase out even if you change the circumstances. For example, if I wasn't in this job tomorrow or I wasn't doing motopause, it will only be because I'm doing something else equal or more worth doing or worth talking about. And when I say talking about, not because it's interesting, but because it's something meaningful. So on your sparks and continuing to do motopause are parts of my life that keep that life protected. So even with everything happening in my professional career, if that were to change tomorrow for the better or for worse, this part is not really ever going to go away because that's an integral part of who I am as a person. So I know that it's not going to be snatched away. That's for sure. And if something bad happens, I think I will be able to survive. It's fine. Everyone does.
Yeah.
So
you have good things coming your way, I'm for sure. That's for sure.
So your life was like a roller coaster, as you yourself said. You've got a lot of unexpected things at an unexpected age, which people often tell you. So if someone would give you an advice, if you wanted an advice in the early phase of your life, what would it be? Like if you wanted to hear something from someone, like just an advice.
That your story matters. I found that out after my story got to where it is. But if someone told me that whatever you're about to do, no matter what it is your story and it matters, that sort of faith in just me as an individual and just acknowledging that I, as an individual, no matter what I do, will do something special, which is true for every other individual out there, no matter what they do. But the story part of it, I wish somebody would have told that no matter what you do from now, you can convert it into a great story, and that will be your story, and it will be great because it's yours. So that will be only it. Other than that, any technical advice or anything doesn't really work. We've all been through the teenage rebellious phase where we've got all the advice we need, but we've never followed it because we need to fall on our face, make those mistakes, and then sort of learn from it. So as much as people envision a mentor or some guiding hand telling you what's right and then things just fall into place, that's not what always happens, because some things you need to learn on your own. And no matter who it's coming from. So all the
So
deep
did someone tell you that what you're doing is wrong? Like, was there like negative feedback you've got?
No, fortunately my family was supportive, unless there was an exam coming up where they were like, this motopause is taking up too much of your time, you're straying away from engineering, what are you going to do with your life? Having said that, they also supported me in whatever I did anyway. So I surprisingly didn't have that negative arc at all, which is something I believe is a privilege. But no, I haven't had any obstacles as such about people telling me that what I'm doing is wrong.
Right. So other than people telling you what's wrong, I'm sure you might have faced a lot of struggles to reach the point that you are at currently. So and talking about struggles, you could, if you could list what difficulties you faced and how did you cope up with that negative time? Like, you might have been getting thoughts of failure, like, I need to stop, or I think I'm doing something wrong if people are, criticizing me. or something like that? How did you deal with negative times?
So with Motopause, we didn't have a lot of negativity, but there were some entities. The animal welfare space in India, especially in the metropolitan cities like Pune and Mumbai and Bangalore and such, is not very supportive of youngsters getting into it directly or doing something or pioneering something. I get why they would think that, because they believe we need to learn a lot about the industry before, a lot about that space before we actually are doing something meaningful. So when we started out, we were students. I was the only one working, and we got a lot of condescending opinions from animal welfare seniors in the industry who have been around for a long time, that it won't work, that this won't work, why are you doing this? These kids don't know anything. So those tags were flung at us a lot. But we stuck to each other, and we played it out anyways. It was disheartening, but the thing was that the whole Motopause team was looking up to me for whatever it was, because it's an amazing team, and whatever sentiment I carry, they will reflect it. So if I would have lost heart, then they would have lost heart also. But we fought it out, and we made our space, and now we also have some credibility in the animal welfare space. Apart from that, in terms of education, in terms of anything else, I didn't really have any issues. When I was in engineering, all these extracurricular activities were looked down upon. For example, when we had released the Pause for a Cause video and it had become very viral, I was in my final year of engineering. And I had been out of the class for a while because I was taking care of the press release. And when I finally went back to class, I had a doubt about a particular topic that the professor was teaching, and I raised my hands and I asked him a question, and he said that I would have answered that question, but why don't you go home and write your songs instead? So that sort of looking down on, why are you doing anything except being here studying engineering and acing it like everybody else here? That sort of attitude definitely existed during my engineering days. I had my batchmates also usually mocked what I was doing behind my back, the songs itself or the initiative or whatever it was. So
Was it because it was getting popularity?
I will never know. I will never know why they did that. I never had that conversation with them. Was it envy, or was it just they genuinely felt it's a waste of time? Either way, it didn't really get to me as much. But yeah, at that time, it really gets to you, because that's your first exposure to somebody not approving of what you're doing. And I felt bad, because in every project that I did during college, I used to mention my college, and my principal used to make it a point that I mention my college so that they also get credit, and which is fine. They gave me the time to do all this. But in the end, when I came back to class and all these professors used to sort of look at me like the black sheep, was very disheartening.
Did you ever feel discouraged after whatever happened with your classmates or professors or anything?
For a bit I did, but I just kept on going. I mean, my answer to anyone discouraging me was to double up my efforts and just keep going in the direction that I'm going. And a big part of that, I think, would be my parents, because whenever I took this to my parents, they always said that just means that you're doing something that nobody else is doing, and you're always going to get this. So I've kept that to my as a close principle, and I've just put my head down and kept going. And honestly, now that I get more and more exposure, as you guys have also noticed, it will only keep going up. Surprisingly, it's not as much as any other sort of publicly exposed individual might get. But I think at some point it's going to grow even more. And there's no escape from it. It's just, we Indians as a culture, in terms of supporting each other, are very regressive. We will, if we are not succeeding, we will rather pull down someone else who is also succeeding. And that's very ingrained in all our cultures, be it online, be it in schools, be it in colleges. And I saw that stark difference when I did go abroad, because I was just mind blown by how authentically people from different countries are supporting each other, criticizing each other, but in a constructive way in terms of what they should change. And I wish that I had that throughout my life. I wish all of us had that throughout our lives, and we would all be better people, and we would all learn very differently in that sense. But the fact remains that Indians in general, we are a regressive people, apart from small pockets. And anything new someone comes out with, the first instinct is to shoot it down. So this does just, I don't feel sad because it happened to me, because I got through it pretty easily, if I'm being honest. I didn't go through some dark phase where I was bogged down, but I feel bad for the people out there, because I see them creating things in whatever category. I see them coming out and sharing their feelings about something, and all they are facing is attacks. So, yeah.
What's your take on this mental health scenario? I mean, what you said right now is related to mental health, but back then, people did not, term it as mental health. But recently, this topic is like, all over the internet. Mental health is important. People usually, tend to say that if you have some problems, talk it out and all of that. So, what's your take on the term mental health and it getting so much known? I mean, it's known right now. So, what is your take on that?
Yeah. I think the term mental health is becoming more active because people, especially youngsters, are beginning to acknowledge what they want from life, or how happy they are, or what is affecting them. But now, mental health is just like your body. If it's not in shape, you take care of it. If you don't feel fit, you want to be fit. You take certain steps to fix it. If you're sick, you take medicine. If you have a fever, or if you have a deficiency, you take those vitamins. And I think it's time that mental health came on the same level of normalcy. And so many influencers out there and so many mental health specialists out there are making this happen. They're pioneering the way to normalize this, which I see a lot, which I see even on my profile. When I had a conversation the last time on my platforms about mental health, the number of people who asked me from different cities for a therapist was incredible. So I had to sort of compile a list and share it, which is a great thing, because people are acknowledging it. And for the longest time, I was a bit of a hypocrite, where I was advocating therapy to everyone, and I hadn't done it myself. But in the very recent past, I have actually gone on to engage in therapy, and it has been amazing. And since a lot of people are listening to this and talking about mental health, let me just take the time to clear two or three basic misconceptions. Therapist is not the same as a psychiatrist. A therapist is someone who has the professional expertise to talk to you and help you, guide you through your own feelings and find the source of where they're coming from. So there doesn't have to be something wrong with you or damaged with you. That's not sort of some statement you should be making about yourself if you want to see a therapist. And even if there was something wrong or damaged, there's no shame in acknowledging it and going to someone and having them guide you through it. Because in our mind, our feelings are always fighting with each other. This is something I've experienced. So we know what's going on with us. We do. But why is it happening, and where it's coming from, and what's the source of it, is the key to solving and getting rid of those in the first place. And I don't think we can do that by ourselves. I don't think we can put that burden on friends either, because as much as they want to help us, they also have a limited emotional capacity, and they don't have the expertise to guide you through it. So think of a therapist as a sounding board, which, based on what you're telling them, is responding and guiding you towards why stuff is happening in your life and how you can deal with it better. So
Right.
that's such a healthy way of doing it. And what I like to call it is internal housekeeping. It's like a mental housekeeping and gardening that you do, and you just want to make sure that the flowers are blooming and the hedges are trimmed and there's no weeds growing. So it's basically like that. And
Right.
irrespective of what we do or don't do, mental health is getting normalized very quickly. Um, so I'm very happy that that's happening. And I think this particular COVID, bringing it back to what Sandili said earlier, is this phase has made us acknowledge our feelings so strongly that I see a lot of people embracing therapy and mental health solutions openly, because it has just exposed how vulnerable we are to our thoughts and how um, in each of our way we need help and we need guidance, and there's no shame in coming out and saying. One of
Right.
the issues about mental health going forward, which by the way I don't have a solution for, but a lot of people out there are trying to solve it, is the expense of it. So an average therapist does cost 1,500 rupees, which I guess by the educational expertise of that person, and if they have to make their bread and butter, might be in fact accurate. 1,500 might be the average cost. But how do you fix the issue of affordability for youngsters or people who don't have jobs, which are a lot, by the way, students who are running on pocket money. So if you need 4 sessions a month, that's 6,000 bucks. And that's not an affordable amount for everyone. But at the same time, it's the basic money that the therapist needs to make. So that hasn't been solved yet. But I hope that in the near future, someone comes ahead with a solution which is worth looking at. I know there are a lot of apps and stuff, but it's not like talking to a real person. So might be government initiatives where mental health becomes sponsored or subsidized, or mental health insurance, stuff like that. Off the top of my head, might decide the fate of therapy and mental well-being in our country. And I think mental health relates not just to us privileged classes who can afford therapy, but a lot of societal issues are rooted in mental health. A lot of crime is rooted in mental health, where if these individuals early on had access to very good mental health resources, who knew why they were acting a certain way, they wouldn't turn out to be individuals who they are right now. Nobody is inherently evil. They just didn't get the right hand to fix them at the right time, or to someone to tell them that what are the right thoughts and what are the wrong thoughts. And we are a long, long way away from mental health seeping down to that level, which is really sad, because these are the people that need it the most.
Right.
We at least have access to resources like looking up on Google or searching and finding, or at least doing some self-analysis, which is not the best way to deal with mental health issues, but at least we have that. Whereas what we consider the underprivileged classes, who are going through the most amount of trauma, the most amount of challenges, they will never see the light of day in terms of mental health solutions. So that should be the end goal that people shouldn't forget. So it shouldn't be affordable just for us. It should near enough be free for these people.
And as you said, as all in the recent times, we are trying to normalize mental health. But do you ever feel that when it comes to internet and social media, there is a portrayal of a very positive picture out there, and it it turns out to be positive to a level where it becomes toxic. And for someone who's dealing with mental health right now, who's dealing with anxiety, seeing so many things, seeing a perfect picture of everyone's life, it makes them a bit vulnerable, makes them feel like a misfit in that situation. In speaking from personal experience, when I was on social media, I went off social media for a while, and before that I realized that when I was on social media, there was this sense of a perfect picture of everyone, which made me feel like a misfit, which made me look down upon myself, and which in a way felt very toxic. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, first of all, let me just say that I feel for you that you had to go through that process where you felt like a misfit. Um, a lot of people, pretty much everyone out there does. And that is the absolute downside of what the internet and social media is going to do, which is one-on-one comparison with every other individual that you see online. And what people forget is you are comparing your ordinary life or daily life with the best parts of everyone else's life that they're putting out. So whatever, for example, whichever individual that you think has a perfect life, it's only the perfect stuff that they are putting out. So lack of honesty and lack of authenticity will lead to this issue on the influencer side, where they're not putting out themselves as who they really are, or they're not sharing their struggles as much as they're sharing the best parts of their life, because that doesn't get likes maybe, or that doesn't get you traction, or maybe they're just scared to do that, or maybe they've just formed this perfect image. By the way, people go through this also, where they've formed this perfect image online that no matter what they go through in their personal life, they feel the compulsion to maintain that perfect image online. That's the struggle maybe on their side, and on your side you are looking at the perfect bits of them only. Now, no matter how much you, me, or Dhruv explains to people that don't compare because this is only the perfect parts of people's lives, we are humans in the end. We are complicated beings, and what we see visually every single day is always going to be what we compare each other to. So I don't think that even if people realize and understand what you mentioned or what I mentioned right now, it's not going to change how they feel tomorrow. And they're going to continue keep doing that. So I think the responsibility lies on authenticity of people who are online, who should be willing to share all aspects of their life and not just the perfect ones, and be true to their story. For example, one of the most common questions in my Q&A that I do online sometimes is, how does it feel to have a perfect life? And the every single time I have the same answer. This is, don't believe everything you see on my profile. It's not the only bits and pieces that's going on. And I am guilty of doing exactly what you have described also, where I put out the best parts of my life. I don't remember the last time I put out a struggle, except for what happened with my dog Winter, which was a very vulnerable situation. I did share that, and it felt good because it everyone saw Winter as this beautiful dog that I had, and our relationship was perfect and amazing. But we went through this challenge, and I wanted people to know that this also exists, and nobody's life is perfect, and bad things can happen. But apart from that, even I am guilty of in the past putting out the perfect bits of my life. So on the one hand, people like me, or who are 100 times more popular, who are already out there, have the responsibility of being authentic. And I don't mean that selectively choose struggles and put them out. Just be honest. Honesty is absolutely the most rare ingredient on social media. Um, so I wish people talked about how they got success, but they're still not happy. I wish people talked about what compromises they had to make to get there. I wish people talked about that they had an amazing breakfast, but the rest of the day was absolute crap. So these things are more healthy, and these things will.
We need to acknowledge that even if we are not as influential, or even just as a person who's putting content out there, we need to acknowledge the fact that we have to use it responsibly, because you never know, the content that we are putting out there could affect anybody in what manner. You have no idea of the consequences of
That's true.
that particular piece of content. It could be a very minute thing for you, but it's not just you doing it. There are a zillion other people doing it, and in the similar format. So it just creates it has a gravity to it, a lot of gravity to it. So,
and if you truly want people to idolize you and believe that they can be like you, then you have to show them the bits and pieces where you relate the most, which is struggles and issues. So if a particular individual who has a strong presence online talks about his struggles or issues or daily mundane things also, which his followers can relate to, then they will automatically start relating to the fact that I can also do the other things that this individual is doing, because in the end, this person is someone just like me.
very true.
But if you have only the perfect part to compare it to, then you compare all the non-perfect parts of yourself to the perfect parts. So I'm not saying don't put out your achievements and your amazing life. Do it, absolutely. You have the right to. put the other part also, so that your followers can see that and be inspired that despite all these struggles, which I also have in my life, he has done XYZ, so even I can reach that height. That's true empowerment, and that's true influencing in that sense.
Correct.
Do you think this situation will change with time? Like, will internet ever be a positive, happy, perfect to be place?
I
Like
don't
the genuine happy place, not the just the positive part. Will it
think
ever
we are
be
a,
true?
think we're a very long way away from it. Um, Authenticity is definitely a long way away, but I would consider it a big step if people were just nice to each other online, which is something which Mr. Tata also acknowledged in one of his Instagram posts, which ironically also got attacked. So you can imagine the level of everyone's just frustrated online, and I wish I knew the answer to why people want to be mean to each other online. Is it because they have anonymity and no accountability? Is it because they're just frustrated with their own perceptions of the world? Or is it because, um, I don't know, is it because they genuinely hate everybody? Because that seems unlikely.
I think it's
So
just dumping your insecurities on the internet, probably.
yeah, and despite what you think, people with a strong presence, and I don't mean me, I don't have hundreds of a presence that people have out there. People with a strong presence who are a public image also, even who get a lot of comments, hate, etc. You might think that because they have reached a certain level, they are unaffected by it, but you're wrong. Anyone who reads bad things about them at the end of the day gets affected by it. And I think if you just make that switch in your mind or in the minds of everyone on online, that whatever I'm about to type, each word that I'm about to type is going to directly impact the mental well-being and the status of a person, then maybe at least some of them might be willing to change. Others are, of course, people who know this already and want to affect them in a bad way. But every word that you type is affecting someone somewhere. So you have to be, to give you an example, yesterday I had put up a post about sexual harassment, and it also had a mention of the LGBTQ community, queer community, and I thought it was a correct comparison of what the post mentioned. But one of a bisexual follower reached out to me and said that, for XYZ reasons, I find this post problematic. So we had a conversation, and it turned out that it was subjective to interpretation. I interpreted it a certain way, and she interpreted it a certain way, and both were right. And I could have stuck to it and sort of said that I think this is my view and I'll keep it online. But as someone who doesn't belong to that community, as someone to whom someone else is coming and saying that it has affected me, you don't have the right to go and say that, yeah, but I don't think it does, because you don't get to decide someone else's feelings if they're telling you they are XYZ feelings. So I took it down. But I don't see that happening at all in the near future. But I would definitely recommend each person on their own individual level to keep being very conscious about what they're putting out, very conscious about what they're replying to, what replies they're typing. And just imagine, one of the key things, one of the secrets that you can use to be nice online is, when you're commenting on someone something, just imagine that that person is having the absolute worst day in their life, and then think about what you're commenting. Sort of puts a filter about what it makes you think about what you're saying and how it will impact someone. So online culture is truly toxic, and nobody is shielded from it. Not any celebrity, not even Ratan Tata, no, not me, nobody is shielded from it. So that I think the only way to combat toxicity is with a cliched line, which is the easiest way to save the world is with kindness. So the more toxicity people put out, the more kindness you should put out, instead of just saying that it's all gone to crap.
Right. With that being said, I feel uh, we need to normalize the fact that it's okay to have struggles. It's okay. It's an inevitable part of our lives, and why not embrace it? Why not cherish our imperfections and embrace it in a manner that, and so that we normalize it and people are not affected by it. these things don't trigger people, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Struggles, and in fact, in 2020, now the internet is so woke that they can call out fake stuff or inauthentic stuff. So why not be authentic anyway?
Right.
Authenticity is, if you do in fact care about, if your goal is popularity and being trending and stuff, then it even serves that purpose if you want it, which is, if you're truly authentic, you will always be relevant. But if you're putting on a facade, it's only a matter of time till you go out of trend and people move on.